New year, new things, new everything, but yet also what's dragging as we continue to look at 2022 is that this whole situation about COVID. So how we're going to face this? How are we going to look forward as well, there's still seems like to me uncertainties. And here's what it is. Isaiah 43 starting on verse 18 and 19. That's what we're going to read here, and we're going to put that on the screen for you. And here's what it is. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the desert and streams in the wasteland. So this is a familiar verse, and I think I've preached on this before, but yet we're going to look at this in a different perspective, Jen. And I like the whole message here as we approach 2022. And again, let me just give you a little background and context for us to understand what's going on here. I believe this is, of course, one of the major prophets in the Old Testament. This is Isaiah, of course, and he's giving a prophetic word to God's people, the Israelites. And what is the situation here? I think for us to be able to understand this text, sometimes we read this and then we just make an application, but yet without understanding the context, sometimes most of the ICGs or the application is amiss. And the context is here. This word is given in a difficult, in a challenging situation. Why? Because the Israelites at this point, they are an exile in Babylon. So before they were enslaved in Egypt, remember that? Then Joshua, we read about this. They were in the wilderness for 40 years with Moses. Now after that, they crossed the promised land. In the promised land, they have conquered the land that God had given them. But yet what happened was they were unfaithful. And because of that, they were exiled to Babylon. So they were brought there to Babylon. Imagine that. So they were no longer experiencing the land flowing with milk and honey. The promises of the Lord is now gone. Okay, now they are captured. Actually, they were dragged, some of them, and shackled by the Babylonians in their land. So the people that are intelligent, good looking, and all of those that are, aptitude for learning, they were brought and dragged to Babylon. Imagine that. Imagine if you're living in a land that your home, you're a nation that you love, a place that you love, and suddenly your enemy comes into they drag you into a place that is foreign to you. This is their situation. And yet the word of the Lord for them, as Isaiah declares that, forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. So the question is, this passage is not only God's timely message to the Israelites, I believe, but in this period of time, in their exile, and because of their disobedience, it's also a timeless message for us as we make a transition for 2022. And as we look at COVID and what's happening, that this COVID seems like had brought to us. So what is God's message to his people, to us, in this period of change and transition? Why do I say change? Because imagine, they were, in a land that they called their own, enjoying the presence of God, but yet they disobeyed. Now it changed from that to being what? Now exiled in Babylon. So there is this transition that happened, and the message is clear. And what is that? Start on verse 18. Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. The message is loud and clear as we look at this text. And what is that? Forget the former things. So let me say this. What is God saying here? Remember, the background is very crucial. Okay, in their current situation, exiled, dragged by their enemy, God is trying to what? Trying to tell them to what? To forget their land, to forget, the good and the bad that had happened. Is that what it is? Maybe not. The Israelites cannot literally forget the good former things that they have experienced. God was not telling them to forget their homeland. Because when you read this, forget the former things, that means I'm going to forget everything about my homeland? No. Forget their temple, their love, their temple, their culture. Is this what God is telling them? Definitely not. Is also God telling them literally to forget the bad times that is in former things? Because when you look at the former things, it could be good and it could be bad. The good things would be your homeland, your culture, your temple. The bad things could be again, why are they in exile? Because they have disobeyed God. Their mistakes, their failures, their sin. So can we really forget? The answer is no. Because again, how could you forget? Even me, I cannot. I wish we have this neuralizer. I remember it now from Men in Black when you just bring out this pen and you just put on your shades, and then if you don't put on your shades, then you forget everything. So, but that's not what God is saying here. So what does it mean to forget former things? Is that what it means? I don't think so. Here's what it meant. Considering their situation, considering the context. And here's my first encouragement. Number one, do not allow your past experience, that is your former things, to influence your perception of the present and of the future. Do not allow your past experiences, that means God is telling you, forget the former things. So that means do not allow your past experiences, former things, good or bad, to influence your perception of the present and also of the future. So what do I mean by this? Two things will happen if we are consumed with the former things. All right? Good or bad? Number one, we're going to have a distorted or a twisted view of the present. Because if you continually focus about the past, you're going to have a distorted or twisted view of the present. So number one, what is my example? That means if it is bad, then the way you look at your presence, if you continually getting possessed by your past, here's what happens, is that you're not gonna embrace the new things that God is doing. So that means you're always gonna view the things that is happening in your life right now with the colored lens of your past, which is at this point the bad ones. So that means you're not gonna be able to move in faith, but you're gonna move in fear because of the bad things that had happened in the past. So blurred. Number two is that not only distorted the twisted view of the present, but also a blurry or hazy or muddy view of the present. You're not going to be able to look forward. Of the future rather. Look forward of the future because you're continually looking at the past. So here's what it is. We cannot rely on our past victories to sustain us. Whatever happened in 2021, great things, please don't focus on that. Focus on God. Because if not, it's not going to be able to sustain you. What do I mean by this? Because you need fresh faith for the fresh challenges that God would bring in your life. Okay? You cannot leave with the past, victories or faith, because you have to embrace the new things that God is doing. That's why it says, forget the former things. What did he say here? Do not dwell on the past. We have this tendency to dwell in the past, dwell on our mistakes, or dwell in our success. So two things. We cannot rely on our past victories or success, and also we cannot let our past failure or mistakes to consume us. Because people cannot embrace or see the present, distorted view of the present, and blurry future because of what? The past mistake consumes them. Like if you have fallen your walk with the Lord, you have made some mistakes in 2021, please do not dwell on that. Do not allow your past experience, your former things, to influence your perception of the present and the future. And I believe this is what's happening here in the condition of the Israelites. And what is that? Because of their past mistakes. Remember, they are in exile because of their sin, and also of their past success. God was saying, do not allow those. Forget the former things. Forget the past experiences, good and bad, to influence your perception of this current situation and also of what God will do in the future. I know this is kind of like a little heavy when I say this, and some of you might be processing this, but just let the Holy Spirit speaks to you, because I believe this is a message that we have to process spiritually more than intellectually. And this is very important. Okay? So that's why, please, let me plead with you. Why? Why are these going to affect you? Let me just put this on the screen for you. 2 Corinthians 5:7. For we walk by faith and not by sight. Why? Because if we focus on our past experiences, usually what happens instead of focusing on God, is that we look at our challenges or our mistake as something bigger than our God. Sometimes we look at our success, and that success, sometimes we look at them as something bigger than God. Here's what it is. That's the problem. God should be bigger than our mistake, and God should be bigger than any success that you accomplish in life. Because if not, both success and failure will consume you. And that is very dangerous. And that's where either you go to what? To the realm of pride, if you are what? If you're successful in 2021, or unbelief, if you have what? Doubt and worry, if you are what? Living the past mistakes or condemnation in 2021. Jen? I know you're thinking, as I could see it in your face.
It's good. It's good to process.
Yes, it's a message that you have to process.
Yeah.
And as you think from now till New Year, please just let the Holy Spirit speak to you and illuminate your heart concerning this.
Yeah, and I hear you when you say, that the past, if we dwell on the past, if we live in the past, then we cannot live in the present, because we're always looking over our shoulder. We're always being defined by our past, and we can no longer move forward in the future or in the present even, because we're always thinking that we are always hunted by our past mistakes, and we can't move forward beyond the mistakes that we've already done. And I remember that, when I was younger, I would, Robert, the every night I would, remember that I told you, I would be sleeping and I would recap my entire day. And I would just be feeling sometimes condemned, because I'm thinking, I made a mistake, or I should have done better, and stuff like that. And it could be so discouraging to the point like you could think like, I can't change anymore, that's what's gonna happen again, and stuff like that. So you're being bound by your past. But also I like what you're saying, that if you live and dwell in your past success, you're always gonna think that you are successful in everything, but in fact you're no longer successful in some things. Like, say for example, you're formerly popular and you still think you're popular, but you're no longer popular. People see that you're no longer popular, but you still think you're popular. And I think when we sometimes we relive those glory days and we think we're still in that state, then we're not able to grow anymore. We're not able to adapt anymore, because we're always stuck with our past success.
Let me put it so that we'll have a right perspective on this.
Okay.
I think the context is because of the Israelites and where they are at this particular situation of their lives. That's why forget the former things, dwell in the past, because God was speaking to them about their past. And that past has two categories, the good and the bad. Right. What was the good? The good thing is God, that God brought them there, that God gave them success, and all those good things. But yet also those good things have made them what? Proud. And also the next one is their mistake, because they are in their current situation because of their sin. And God was saying here, that's why do not forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. We have to be careful, because we could put a whole lot of application about this, but this is not exactly what the scripture is saying. So that's why do not allow your past experience or former things to influence your perception, because what Isaiah was giving here was a word. It's not just because, again, there's a lot of lessons about learning from the past, and this is not what it is. Here is, it's very clear. Do not what? Look at this. Forget the former things. God wanted them to forget, but not forget in a sense that they will have amnesia spiritually. Right. But what God was saying here is that not allowing those past or former things, good or bad, to influence what God is doing, for them to not to see what God is doing now and also in the future. Because we have the tendency to do that when we dwell on the past, which is good or bad. The example, bad things, my mistake, I made a mistake in 2021. It's a big blunder and everything. That's the example, right? So here's what happens. So if I continually dwelling on that, that means I'm not going to be able to see the present things that God is doing, and also affects the way I see what God is going to do in the future.
Right.
Next is that good thing, great success that had happened for my life in 2021. That means if I continually focus on that, then I'm not open also to see what God is doing now and also what God would do in the future. So the other one, I lived in condemnation. The other one, I lived in pride. Both are dangerous. That's what this is. So it's not like your past defining you. I understand that. The past should not define us. But yet what he was saying, do not dwell on the past, because we have the tendency as human beings to dwell on those two things. Either it gets you to the point of condemnation and worry and unbelief, or to the realm of pride and being boastful that you forget and see what God is about to do. That's what this is all about. Because it's so easy for us to go and, there's a lot of application.
I like what you said. It's not like it's not like amnesia, like it did not happen.
That's not what God is saying
turn
here.
your back away.
Exactly, because some of us,
past.
the way we're going to answer this is that, let's just forget all of those bad things. No.
Or some of you are happy because you're saying, okay, I forget the people I don't like.
Exactly. You're going to forget the people that you don't like. You're going to forget. But that's not what it is. Because it's impossible.
Yeah.
Because then what is it then? On those two things.
You condemnation.
You dwell. That's why he the word has do not dwell. The dwelling is where you linger. Do not dwell, do not linger on that, because you are, which is the key here, is the next verse. But before that, let me put this on the screen. And from John Piper, of course, here's what he said: stop defining and limiting your future in terms of your past. Start defining it in terms of your God. Whoa. Isn't it? So again, that's John Piper, and I think it catapults. So let me just go read some few. Zell said, "This I've learned: let our past connect let not our past connect our present living, for God is creating a new thing." Yes, that's what it is. That's why this is very important. The perception that we have is based, if we're filtering that based on our former things, then we're gonna have a problem. All right, great. You got it, Zell.
Mike has a good question.
What should be the correct attitude if we can't dwell in our failures or proud of our victories? Mike Yabut, great question. Okay, and which is the next point.
Yes.
Okay, I know. So we're gonna go move that, but let me just read Pence. Focus on what lies ahead, living for God. What lies ahead, living for God and His will and plans for us, leaving everything victories defeats behind. So let me just go answer this now. So because that's why it continues to verse 19. And here's my second point. God's excited and eager for us to see what He is doing right now. So Mike, I'm not saying totally that, we should not learn from the past. I'm not saying that. We just spiritual amnesia about the past. So the question that you posed is that if we can't dwell in our failures or proud of our victories, what should be the correct attitude? Is God is expecting and is excited to eager for us to see what He's doing right now. So that's why look at this in verse 6. And I think verse 19 rather. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up to you. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the desert and streams in the wasteland. Let me pause. One of the great things when you study the scripture here is understanding the tense of the verb. And one of the tense here, as we kind of like have a little discussion a while ago, because I'm looking at this in that, present active tense. And my wife says, no, it's a present progressive tense. And I kind of like, and then actually I agreed with her, because after that, because the word doing, the ing, see, I am doing, this is a present progressive tense of a verb. What do you mean by that? Okay, don't get lost now. So we're going back to English class, but this is a clue in understanding this text. The key is this, understanding the current why? Because again, describe an activity that is currently in progress. That's why God was saying, forget the former things, do not dwell in the past, because see, there's a command. So right away, see, I am doing a new thing! Exclamation point. This is like there's an excitement from the Lord to present to us that He is doing a new thing. So the tendency, if we dwell on our past and our victories of success, proud, or are dwelling in the past of your weaknesses, condemnation, here's what happened. Then you don't see what? God is doing a new thing. Because here's what it is. God, as we go through transition in life, here's what you need to understand. That you see that God is doing something. So, God is excited and eager for us to see what He's doing right now. At this present situation. Because sometimes we're so dwelling in the past, victories, proud, weaknesses, condemnation, in that we forget to see the new things that God is doing. So, that's why there's an exclamation point. Remember, this is a present progressive tense. An activity that is currently in progress. So when God was giving this to them as a news, remember they are in exile. But yet God is saying He's doing a new thing. Isn't that interesting? Because in the midst of their challenging situation, God is saying, I am doing a new thing. Can you not see it? So God was actually saying, I am working right now. I am doing something right now. But the problem is you can't see it because you keep on looking. You keep on dwelling. All right? So that's why when you continue, it springs up. Do you not perceive? Interesting, because perception is what was being said here. So there is a perception that is being presented. So that means perception is understanding what's going on around you. Right? Because perception is, okay, we could be in the same challenging situation, but yet your perception of the situation is different than mine.
Right, exactly.
Yes, that's why. Do you not perceive it? Because some of them, in the midst of that difficulty, God was saying, perceive. Have a good perception of what is going on here. And what am I doing here in this situation? Because behind the scene of Israel's captivity and oppression, God was working for them. God was working for them in that future, in that present, and also in the future. So that's what's happened. Here's what it is, because we oftentimes have a difficult time perceiving the hand of God at work in our life because of what? Difficult situation. You know why? Let's look at the difficult situation. Because we focus what? More inward instead of upward. That's why. See, I am doing a new thing.
Right.
The question is, do you not perceive it? Again, I am making a way in the desert. So God is giving you a miracle here. Actually, it's a miracle. A way in the desert? Come on. Streams in the wasteland? That's impossible. That's a miracle. But God was saying to them, I am doing a miracle here, but yet you're not seeing. I am doing something for you right now that is impossible to take place, but yet you are not seeing and you're not perceiving. Because you are looking inward instead of upward. Wow. So, when you look at this, I am making a way in the desert, streams in the land. Why? Again, another example to stress a point. What is the point? Sometimes God places us in an incredibly difficult situation so that what? So that we could put our trust in Him. Because the bigger the obstacle, the bigger the display of God's greatness in our lives. So that's why I put 2 Corinthians 5:17, we live by faith, or we walk by faith and not by sight. Because if it is by sight, you're going to look at your circumstance, you're going to say, dangerous, difficult, I'm not going to go out anymore because Omicron is out. But if you look at it in the eyes of faith, then you see the bigger God, not the circumstance. Because you're not focusing inward, but you're focusing upward. Does that make sense? Let me just read some few things as you're processing this in your heart. Okay? Our past, according to Zell, our past, whether success or failures, can be our most great testimony how God makes victories over our trials. Start the new year with a clean slate. I strongly agree with your pastor. Albert said, dwelling on our fast is often a protection mechanism, but often it's a false sense of assurance and safety. Only God can truly provide certain assurance and safety. I agree. Letting go of our past is in God's hands, is allowing ourselves to forfeit our ideals of control, but allows God the freedom to move in our midst because of our faith has gone from ourselves to having faith in Him. And God partners with our free will when we align our wills to His. Yes, beautifully said and beautifully expressed. That's why the question is, do you not perceive? So, do you not perceive it? Now it springs up. That means at that particular moment. But yet the thing is, why is God giving this message to them? And here's what I wanted to share to you today. You know why? Because they're so hung up with being in captivity and being dragged to Babylon that they forgot that they still have a God that is still in control. Because what they look at this, they look at the circumstance, and they look at the circumstance and they what? And they concluded that the circumstance is in control, not God anymore. Because this is a very difficult situation for them.
Right.
What's the application? When we face our 2022, to be honest with you, I don't know what we're going to face. I don't know what variant of this virus is going to be out there. Omicron, Tau, Gamma, Phi, P or whatever, Delta, Eternals, whatever. So, but here's what I know. Here's what I know. God is doing a new thing. And it's sad when we get focused on the virus, but instead of focusing on God. It is sad as Christians when we focus on the difficulty inward instead of what God is doing. That's why, here's the thing. See, I am doing a new thing. That's why God has to open our spiritual eyes for us to be able to see what He is doing. Because if not, then we're going to be like the crowd, herd, that's going to go follow whatever and be living in fear and be living in whatever instead of allowing God to move in our lives and seeing victories that He had promised for us. That's my message for you as you face 2022.
Wow. And I feel like it is a good prelude to our upcoming prayer and fasting and consecration week, because this is looking upwards and not inwards, and just there's just gonna be a lot of things that's gonna happen in 2022. We don't know what the future would hold, and I agree with you, Robert. Some people are hopeful, some people are I don't know. But as we move forward, and like what you said, things are moving forward. But no matter what the circumstance that we face, are we gonna look up through the eyes of faith and see through the eyes of faith and ask God to open our eyes to see what He is doing right here, right now? Because just like what you said, I love what you said, I underlined it. The bigger the obstacle that we face, the bigger the display of His greatness.
Yes.
And as you know, COVID has been one of the biggest obstacles that we have ever faced worldwide, globally. And I just believe that God is about to display His greatness. Yeah. And my prayer is that we will perceive it. We would see the new thing that He is doing. We will see the miracle that He is actually moving. He is actually doing it right now. And it's present progressive. Yes. I am doing it.
Yes, it's present progressive. I am not asking God for a better 2022. If that's the case, then we're just following the crowd.
Yeah. It's good luck charm.
It's a good luck charm. I'm not. God is not a good luck charm. I'm putting my faith in God. I'm looking upward as I face 2022.
Right.
And here's my prayer is. My prayer is, Lord, that I would see, that I would perceive the new things that You are doing.
Yeah.
Because if not, I'm going to dwell on the past. So the tension here is this. Dwell in the past, see and perceive the new things that God is doing. When I say past, mistakes and successes or victories, and perceive the new thing is that the new things that might not be what you're expecting, but yet it's the new thing. Do you think that the people of Israel is expecting that they're going to be carried off in Babylon? But yet
things are going to get better.
Things are going to get better. Actually, the prophecy when God unfolded it to Jeremiah is this: they're going to stay in Babylon for 70 years before they return. 70 years. But yet God says, I'm doing a new thing. And I'm like, what do you mean new thing? 70 years in captivity, that's a new thing? Because in the midst of even their disobedience, God's grace is still being extended towards them. But yet, again, it's because God is, again, putting us in a situation like this, deserts and wasteland. But he could do miracles in deserts and wasteland if we fully put our trust in him. I'm not looking for a better 2022. I'm not. I'm looking, okay, just like what Albert said in this, that I would put my, submit my will to his will in 2022 so that I could see the new things that he is doing.
Wow.
I'm not looking for a better 22. I'm looking for me submitting to his will.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
In 2022.
Yeah, that's a paradigm shift right there. Yeah. Because all of us, we always want at the start of the year, things to get better, things to be beautiful, blessing, and all of that. And who wouldn't want that? But, sometimes there has to be a paradigm
Yes, because
shift.
again, if that better, Jen, here's my thing. If this better is because it's just about our past victories that we're carrying over to this 2022, then we're full of pride, then that's not better.
I agree.
Then that's not.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I know some of you are thinking about this, you're processing this, but go deeper with me today as we face 2022. So it's not, I'm wishing. No, it's a decision on our part to submit our will to his will so that we could perceive the new things and see the new things that he's doing. The miracles. Because if not, you're not going to see it.
Yeah.
Because God might be doing so many miracles in your life right now, but you cannot see it is because you're still dwelling in the past.
That's so good.
That's what this verse is saying.
Yeah,
See,
so
I am doing a new thing. So God was saying, springs up to you. It's there. It springs up to you. It's in front of you. But yet, the question is, do you not perceive it? That means they're not seeing.
Yeah.
Because they're so, what?
Consumed
with whatever they're dwelling in the past. That's not what I want.
Yeah.
That's not what I want in 2022. Amen.
Wow, such a great discussion, and I think that we are ready to pray. But do you want to read some few?
Some few more comment here. So you could actually type in your
comments, your insights, your thoughts.
and thoughts. Sal said, "Thank you, Pastor Robert and Miss Jen, for the encouraging message. I'm going to share this message to my victory group. Very powerful." Thank you. You're very much welcome. I hope we see that. And again, some of the things that we have wrote here, please, they're great, but I'm just wanting to focus on the context of the verse. Context for the proper application is very important.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna chew on this one a little bit more.
Yes, read a little bit more. Isaiah 43, verse 18 and 19. And look at the context of what's going on.
Yeah, this is reality talk. It's because we're always looking for New Year we feel like when January 1, 2022 hits, like everything just switches into a positive note, like or blessing.
Yeah, that's why when you read this text, I'm doing a new thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, new thing. But the problem here is that, there's a new thing, but they don't see. So what a tragedy would that be that God is doing a new thing, but yet we don't see it.
Yeah, and here's the thing: God is doing a miracle. God is continuously doing a
making
new thing.
a way in the desert, in streams in the wasteland. Do you think that's
in the desert?
In the desert,
wasteland.
come on, that's a miracle unfolding.
Yeah.
But yet, what God was challenging them: do you not perceive this? Do you not see this?
Yeah.
And I think for us, that's the problem.
Yeah, so even if we're in the desert in 2022, or even if we're in a wasteland, we feel like in
2021, might be a wasteland, but still there's a miracle that
God is doing.
Even in the difficulty of COVID, it doesn't mean that God's hand is tied, that he cannot do a miracle.
Exactly.
And actually, he's already doing. That's why it's present
miracles.
Progressive. It's already happening. Doing, ing.
Yeah.
Right at that moment.
That's so
currently in progress.
Yeah, so good. It is so good.
All right, let me just read some few comments here.
I'm excited.
Go.
Yeah.
Let me just read. Bless says, this is why the present is God's gift. That we should always be excited to open perceiving the new things that God is doing. Or just like, what's that? Kung Fu Panda right there. Honeyside, something to ponder and for the next few days. Yes, thank you. That's all I'm asking. Process this in the next 3 days.
Yeah.
So Mike Yabut said, thank you, Pastor Robert and Sis Jen, for allowing yourselves to be used by the Lord in sharing this message. Truly bless here halfway across the
globe.
So, Mike Abbott, if you don't mind me asking, where are you watching from?
Yeah.
So, are you
where
watching from the Philippines, or where you at in Japan? I forgot. Okay, Renjo Almario, high and lows, and even in mundane, may God give us the grace to perceive what He's doing. Yes. Perceived. See. That's the word. The things that that the verb here, see. You know, I spoke Tagalog.
I am doing.
Perceive. All right. Understanding this text now excites me for the coming year.
Yes.
Thank you. And this is very much connected to what I'm going to share to you in January 2nd.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah. So I'm going to sleep on this. I'm going to, let's process this together as a church, I believe. Because normally we would hear a message on Sunday and then the same, a spin-off on Wednesday. And so
but this one is different.
This one is like...
I'm going to use this as a jumping point for my message this coming Sunday.
So it's the opposite other way around,
week.
right? So we kind of prelude to what is going to be spoken on the second. So I'm excited about that. But I hope that you are encouraged by this message.
Yes, and Mike Yabut says Marikina. Welcome,
Marikina.
welcome. And thank you for all the questions, and thank you for chiming in and writing your insight. We appreciate that greatly because we can't see you, and we're doing this live. All the comments here, the response is highly appreciated because now we know that at least you're listening to us.
Yes. Yeah, and not multitasking, just really focused on the word, and we appreciate it. And so, having said all of that,
that's a long discussion, Jen.
I know,
Sorry,
yeah,
it
long
took
discussion,
a little bit longer.
Really